I am 78 years old. I say that out loud now because it still surprises me that I lived this long and still managed to miss so much of my own life. I wake up most mornings before the sun, not because I need to, but because my body no longer knows how to rest without guilt. The house is quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and reminds you of everyone who isn't there anymore. I sit at the small kitchen table with a cup of coffee I rarely finish and think about how I used to believe this part of life would feel earned, peaceful, settled. It doesn't. It feels unfinished. There are names I still avoid saying out loud. There are moments I replay, not because they were dramatic, but because they were ordinary. And that's what hurts the most. Ordinary chances, ordinary evenings, ordinary words I thought I could say later. I don't have much later left. From where I sit now, time feels different. It doesn't stretch forward anymore. It gathers behind me. It stacks itself into memories, whether I ask for them or not. Some mornings I feel grateful just to be here. Other mornings I feel like I arrived too late to my own life, and now I'm expected to quietly accept the seat that's left. When I was younger, I didn't think this way. I didn't think much at all about endings. In my 20s, I thought life was something you prepared for, like a house you'd live in once it was finally finished. I was practical, careful, proud of that. I worked hard, paid my bills on time, showed up when I was supposed to. I believed responsibility was the same thing as love. I told myself I would rest later, listen later, feel later. In my 30s and 40s, my days were full. Not meaningful, just full. Alarm clocks, commutes, grocery lists folded into my purse. Conversations cut short because there was always something waiting. I remember standing in doorways, half listening to people I loved, already planning the next task in my head. I thought I was being efficient. I didn't realize I was practicing absence. Nothing felt wrong at the time. That's the part people don't talk about. Regret doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with alarms or warnings. It settles in quietly while you're busy being reasonable. I missed birthdays without realizing they were important. I postponed phone calls because the day felt long enough to push things to tomorrow. I assumed the people around me would stay the same, just older versions of themselves, waiting patiently while I handled what I thought mattered. Now, at 78, I know how fragile those assumptions were. I know how fast a voice can disappear from the world, how a chair can stay empty forever, how a relationship can fade without a single argument, just a long series of not now moments. I'm not telling you this to be dramatic. I'm telling you because this is where quiet decisions eventually lead. This is what accumulates when you believe time is generous. I can still see my younger self clearly. She wasn't careless. She wasn't cruel. She just believed she had more time than she did. I remember thinking 40 was old. I remember saying it out loud and laughing. Back then, life still felt adjustable, like a loose garment I could tailor later If something didn't fit, I assumed I'd fix it when things slowed down. They never really did. In my 40s, I was good at being needed. Work needed me. Family needed me. People called when something broke or when they didn't know what to do next. I wore that like proof that my life mattered. Being busy felt like evidence of worth. I didn't question it. I didn't notice how often needed quietly replaced present. There were evenings when someone would start talking and I would nod, already tired, already thinking about the next morning. I told myself I was just exhausted, that this was temporary, that once things stabilized, I'd be better company, kinder, more attentive. I didn't see that this was the habit forming. The days slid into each other. The years did too. Nothing collapsed. Nothing exploded. That's why I didn't notice what was happening. Relationships don't always end with slammed doors. Sometimes they thin out. Sometimes they survive only as routines. Holiday cards, brief calls, updates exchanged like weather reports. I remember one conversation in particular. It wasn't special at the time. Someone I loved wanted to talk. Just talk. No crisis, no emergency. I remember glancing at the clock, thinking about how late it was getting, telling myself I'd call back when I had more energy. I never did. Not properly. Life moved on. Then one day, that conversation was no longer available to have. I don't remember what I was busy with that night. That's what stays with me now. Loss didn't arrive all at once. It trickled in. A missed dinner here, a delayed visit there. Small disappointments that didn't seem worth addressing. I thought love could survive neglect as long as it wasn't intentional. I was wrong. By the time I reached my 60s, the world had begun to quietly rearrange itself. People retired. People moved away. People got sick. I told myself this was just how aging worked, that loneliness was part of the package. I didn't connect it to the years I spent postponing connection. Then came the moment you can't rewind. It's always something irreversible. A diagnosis, a phone call, a death that arrives whether you feel ready or not. That's when the math of your life suddenly becomes clear. That's when you see how many chances were real and how many you treated like they'd renew themselves. I stood at a grave once and realized I had loved someone deeply and still failed to show up when it counted. There was no villain in that story, just time misused. From where I am now, regret isn't loud, it's steady. It sits with me in the mornings and follows me into quiet rooms. It reminds me that life doesn't punish you for waiting. It simply moves on without you. I don't have the arrogance anymore to believe I'll fix things later. Later has a way of becoming never. There are things I cannot fix now. That's the part people don't prepare you for. They tell you about aging bodies, about aches and appointments and medications lined up by the sink. They don't tell you about the permanent silence where certain conversations should have been. Some doors don't close, they dissolve. I think about the people who once knew the sound of my footsteps, who could tell my mood just by the way I set my bag down. We didn't fight. We didn't fall apart in any dramatic way. We simply stopped being careful with each other. And care, it turns out, is not automatic. It requires attention, presence, time given without conditions. I used to believe love was proven by sacrifice, by doing, by enduring. I didn't understand that sometimes love is just staying still long enough to be felt. I was always moving, always solving something, always postponing rest, as if it were a reward I hadn't earned yet. Now rest comes whether I want it or not. I sit with memories that have no audience anymore. There's no one left to say, "Do you remember when?" The past becomes heavier when you're the only one carrying it. Even good memories ache when they have nowhere to land. I don't say these things to frighten you. I'm not warning you. I'm telling you what I wish someone had told me without softening it. Time does not ask whether you are ready. It does not care how responsible you've been. It only moves. If you're listening to this and you still believe you have plenty of time, I understand. I believed that too. I was certain of it. I was wrong in a very ordinary way. If there's someone in your life whose voice you've been meaning to hear again, notice that word, meaning. It doesn't carry weight on its own. Action does. I waited for the right moment. It never arrived because I kept walking past it. I don't give advice anymore. Advice assumes control. All I have are truths I paid for slowly. The truth is this: the life you're postponing is the one you're currently living. The cost doesn't appear all at once. It shows up later, when your calendar is empty and your house remembers more than your phone does. I'm 78 years old. I live quietly now. I accept what cannot be returned. Some days that acceptance feels like peace. Other days it feels like grief without an edge. If this story stays with you, that's enough. You don't owe me anything. I'm just a woman near the end of her time, finally saying the things I kept telling myself I'd say later. And later, as I learned too late, is not a promise.